Alright, alright. What's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Today, going to be taking a look at Litecoin, LTC against USDT. Going to be assessing some of these key technical aspects of price action moving forward. Going to be looking at some of the pivotal areas of support and resistance I believe we're going to be interacting with in the near future here. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you trade? Do you hold? Or do you let the price action unfold? Do you think price action is headed downward? Are we going to be interacting with these kind of lower levels in the coming future here? Or have we found support and a break upward is pending, and we're going to be seeing those highs that we came from not too long ago? Let me know your strat moving forward. Now jumping right into it to kind of recap this very bullish uptrend that's been interacting with the ascending trend line since the end of October of kind of 2020 to realistically we broke and fell out of it sort of at the middle of May for the kind of third time. And so price action would interact kind of like upward, setting these higher highs, and then interacting with that ascending trend line to print what appears to be like higher lows to find support. We ultimately broke that ascending sort of trend line there at the kind of end of March of 2021 to interact with that very significant $177 level, which was significant resistance, causing that kind of swing high at the beginning of January of this year, bringing us down to $116 support. And so ultimately, that $177 level became significant support, I believe, kind of the end of February to beginning of March. And then at the end of March again, when we fell through that ascending trend line there, we bounced off it sort of like twice, printed some higher lows, printed some higher highs with resistance found around kind of like 335 and 301. That was significant enough to bring us down to kind of like upper support found above 207 and around like 226. Upon bouncing from that level, printed some higher highs again. Price action was looking quite bullish. Higher lows, higher highs. The uptrend was continuing, but momentum changed very abruptly. We ended up falling through that ascending trend line there for the kind of third and final time. Tried to find support, but ultimately found resistance between 303 and 334, and we ended up falling through that kind of like upper support level of kind of like 206 and 226 to interact with $177 again. Currently, we are, closing. We appear to be closing below this trend line. Price action is below it. If you start having candles opening and closing below $177, so that could confirm it as resistance, and which could, send us all the way down to a potential low of $116. Price action would look kind of like more short-term bullish if we were to find support kind of where we are. Say we even have some wicks downward. If we start printing higher lows above kind of like 147 or like 155, that would be more kind of like short-term bullish, and we could suspect price action might find its way above 177 again. Ultimately, I do suspect that once we do surpass $177 in the near future, I do believe we're going to have to come back to it as support before moving forward. Ultimately, if, like I was saying, if price action does continue to open and close below the $177 support line, that does confirm it as resistance. And so this does seem to be significant enough to bring us down to what could be potential significant support at $116. Now, when we consider EngineeringRobo, along with the Fibba Zucchini, Fibba Illuminati lines of Sacred Symmetry bikinis and martinis, we can see a new perspective come into play. We're in a very kind of pivotal range here. We have the 0.382 Fibonacci level at $172, just below my $177 resistance, and we are also just below that 200 daily moving average, which I believe would be currently at like $182. We have had some what appears to be a retest off of it as resistance, and so I do believe we're already finding resistance at the 200 daily moving average, as well as these being lower highs relative to price action at the 27th and the kind of 3rd of June there. And so this symmetrical-esque triangle that appears to be playing out, I believe has a potential to break downward in the near future here. Retest off that 200 daily moving average is going to be a very technical bearish perspective, and price action making its way downward to these levels is not impossible for Litecoin, as Litecoin does perhaps like to take its time to consolidate, and perhaps consolidate in a more bearish manner for tens of days potentially for making its way back from the levels it came from. And so at these levels, these sell-offs could take perhaps a little bit longer to play out, kind of like the more, like the higher we get in price action. We've yet to interact with that FOMO zone, so I do believe interaction with the FOMO zone up past, the relative swing high at like $413, I do believe interaction with that FOMO zone is is pending for Litecoin in its perhaps mid to a longer term future, but in the short term we could see some continued downside and accumulation, as there will be a heavy sell pressure under that 200 daily moving average. But the 0.236 Fibonacci line is going to be significant support if we do end up coming down to my support level at 116. $115.92 is going to be that 0.236 line that could be a support that we interact with in the perhaps near future. We do have the sell for and hell present, suggesting some more short-term bearish price action. And in addition to that, 200 daily, the technicals could bring us down, but the fundamentals could hold us over the course of time to bring us back above the 200 daily. But ultimately, we are in a pretty pivotal state. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market. And like I was saying, I do believe there's going to be a lot of technical sell pressure present under that 200 daily. And with EngineeringRobo being short-term bearish as well, we can expect perhaps some continued kind of downside. When we consider Litecoin against the price of Bitcoin, we can see a new perspective come into play, a slightly more bullish perspective in my opinion. I do believe consolidation between 45.07 and kind of like 51.10 Satoshi is going to be the kind of key levels that we could find price action making its way between. A significant a higher low support around 41.33 Satoshi would still be bullish long term in my opinion, and we could be bearish enough to make our way down to it. But ultimately, we could be more short term bullish if we stay above like 45.07. When we were to consider EngineeringRobo along with the Fibonacci lines, we can see a new perspective come into play here. When we consider that 0.618 line at 5099 Satoshi, just under my 51 kind of 10 line there, that's going to be significant local resistance moving forward. We've had multiple kind of retests under it, some kind of like lower highs printing just under that line, so significant local resistance does appear to be present at those levels. Interaction with 4502, I believe, is more likely than not. Although we could be bearish enough to come down to that 200 daily moving average, or even that 0.786 line, which would be still a more bullish low relative to my support level at 41.29, and that wick down to sort of like 37.55 back at the 23rd of May. And so there's a little more room for downside available, and we could still be bullish long term even after it. And so I mean the fundamentals of Litecoin long term, I do believe, are bullish enough to kind of hold us through this perhaps very technical sell pressure. But we do appear to be suggesting some potential continued downside, and interaction with these lower levels might play out. We have the sell 2, sell 3, sell 4, and hell all against the price of Bitcoin during that ridiculous candle that opened kind of like way above there at like 68.50 Satoshi. Wicked down to like 46.12, but then closed at 50.74. There's a lot of crazy price action during that day. A lot of sudden jarring news. Like I said earlier, there's plenty of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market, causing some very volatile price action. But I do believe the fundamentals long term are still quite bullish. We have had a very, very bullish crypto the past year, and so some little bit of downside I believe is necessary for the uptrend to continue in the longer term. Now, when we consider Bitcoin itself against USDT, we can see price action making its way toward that 0.5 level. 34,100 is going to be significant potential support moving forward. I do suspect we are going to interact with that 32K level. I do believe these consecutive lower highs and significant sell pressure under that 200 daily moving average is going to bring us down to that 32K level. Ultimately, we could, not impossible at all, come all the way down to perhaps that sub 30 level to high 20Ks again for a very brief period before we make our way up long term, as we are still up like hundreds of percentages since this time last year. So some more bearish downside I believe could still occur before we see it, before we see the uptrend kind of return. I do believe in the kind of very long term, I'm still bullish. Bitcoin has had a very, very, very parabolic run, and so this retracement I do believe is necessary for the uptrend to continue, and so we can be more short-term bullish if we hold that 0.5 Fibonacci line. However, I suspect that we're going to interact with 32K, which will be a nice bottom as well. But ultimately, it is not impossible to see that 0.382 line at 27K. Significant resistance at that 0.618 line, 41,500. Even if we were to come all the way back up to that 0.618 level, if that becomes significant enough resistance, it could send us all the way back down to 34K again and past 34K. And so, we're going to have to be very careful when we get to that level, as I do believe price action will have to take a few days to break it. And if we do break it, we're going to have to come down to confirm it as support before we can get up to that 48K kind of resistance there. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? What are you doing during this crazy volatility? This, this sell-off does seem to be playing out in a kind of more, midterm manner. So we could see some perhaps continued couple weeks to perhaps a month or so. Some more sideways, some more bearish sell pressure, heavy sell pressure present. The fundamentals of Bitcoin are quite bullish, I believe, in the long term to hold us through this. But there's going to be some crazy volatility moving forward. Let me know what you're doing with your bag. If you have one, do you trade Litecoin? Do you trade Bitcoin? Let me know your thoughts on price action. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Try EngineeringRobo free with a link in the description. Subscribe here on YouTube. Check out all the other social media down below. And tune in for the next one.